Well, good morning. Namaste. It's, as always, a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Ray, for the wonderful music that you've provided so far. I was inspired when I saw that we were chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, as we call it. I felt inspired to share with you a little bit about what that means when we're chanting it. So you have three words, Hare Krishna and Rama. And we acknowledge Krishna and Rama as two historical figures. Now, many, including myself, believe that their lives were highly mythologized, yet they were historical figures that existed between 5,000 and 10,000 years ago, and we draw great inspiration from the narratives of their lives. But the words go deeper than simply names. In Sanskrit, Krishna means all attractive, that which attracts us. And Rama means that which gives pleasure. And Hare is an expression of the feminine divine energy. So when we are chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, what we're doing is invoking an aspect of God, multiple aspects actually. God as the most attractive, God as the single source of all pleasure, and God as the divine feminine. That has nothing to do with what I'm prepared to talk about today, but I thought you'd appreciate that. Actually, what I'm here to talk about, as you may know, the title of my talk today is The Shadow of Your Smile, where the body is the mind follows. And I'm taking the title, The Shadow of Your Smile, from one of my favorite songs. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece, and I'm sure most of you are of a certain age here who would know that. And The Shadow of Your Smile is, well, it's of course a love song. It comes from the depths of love of a man for a woman, and he's trying to express in that song his deep passion, his deep connection for her, and also at the same time encouraging her to consider electrolysis. You know, that just doesn't seem like the kind of joke that should be told from the pulpit of a Unity Church in 2021. Maybe a synagogue in New York in 1966. Nonetheless, no. What I'm here to talk about today, the reason I chose this, of course, I like to draw inspiration from the daily word and expand on it. I'm sure you know that. And I wanted to talk about smiles because smiling has been trivialized so much in society, and especially in some spiritual circles, as if all you need to do is smile and everything is just going to work out hunky-dory. That's not it. And it's interesting because there is a shadow side to a smile. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But even though there has been, again, this trivializing of the smile, the happy faces, the emojis and all of that I use them as well. Don't think I'm putting them down. But just the simplistic notion that a smile can cure anything, that is not true. But at the same time, smiles are very, very important. And I want to take a serious look at smiles, if we can. And to this point, I bring up something from the Hindu tradition, which is called the mudra. And a smile, as we will see, is a mudra. The mind goes where the body begins, to paraphrase the subtitle. What we do with our bodies is often aspirational to our consciousness. How we sit, how we move, how we pray, how we meditate. All of that is, we're trying to pull a consciousness into our bodies, into ourselves. And we start with a position. And in Hinduism, this has been studied, this has been codified, if you will. But we all know it intuitionally. Religions have brought positions into they've brought them into a state of reverence, almost of dogma. So for instance, in the Christian tradition, when someone from the pulpit or anywhere else says, "Let us pray," what do most people do? They bow their heads. Why? They may not even figure it out at the moment, but they are entering into a place of humility because, especially in the Christian tradition, so much has been the imagery of our relationship to God is that of a king and his subjects. So what does one do in the presence of a king? One bows. So a Christian would bow his or her head. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that at all. As a matter of fact, in Hindu temples and Buddhist temples, oftentimes you will see people doing full body prostrations. That is, lying flat on the floor as if you were trying to escape gunfire. But only for a couple of seconds. Only for a couple of seconds. So we encourage that humility in the consciousness, but for the most part, we're sitting on the floor in a cross-legged position, and we attempt to focus on the divine in whatever form, as a friend, as a lover, as an intimate. So to keep the head bowed or to keep ourselves prostrate on the ground would defeat that purpose. But nonetheless, bowing of the head is a mudra. You see in Islam, you go to a mosque, they kneel and they touch their head to the floor. Again, a focus on humility, on this is the great God out there. Now, in unity, I don't see that as much. People aren't told in any unity service I've been, where I haven't been leading, to bow their heads. There may be some bowing, but for the most part, there still is this understanding that we need to relate to the divine in a less formal way, and that's wonderful. When I instructed you to meditate just now, I gave very specific directions on how you should sit, right? To keep the spine erect, the palms upturned, the shoulders are back. And then I mentioned bringing the attention here to what we call the spiritual eye, the third eye, the eye of Shiva, whatever. Why go through all of that? Why couldn't you just kind of sit, chill, lie back, and relax? Why go through all of that? Because we're attempting to draw the mind into that consciousness that we, as it is said by one great Hindu teacher, you want to show God you mean business. And we show God we mean business by being in the appropriate posture. If you were to just have someone come over, or if you were to go to someone's home, or if you were to go to someone's office, how do you think, what would be the reception if you plopped in a chair and you threw a leg over one of the arms of a chair and just kind of chilled. Probably not great, right? You want to be relaxed, you want to be comfortable, but at the same time, you don't want to just chill out. Meditation is not just chilling out. Yes, we are looking for a relaxed state of mind. Yes, we are looking for that still point. But you can do that in an appropriate posture where, because you don't want to be stiff as a board. You want to maintain an erect posture. You want to keep the palms up. Why the palms up? Because receptivity. You also see in churches people praising like this. Why do they do that? Where in the Bible does it say that you need to put your hands up like this? But it's a natural inclination to receive. You are receiving. So you put your body in a pose that will encourage the consciousness of receptivity. And when we meditate and our palms are up like this, we are in the position of receiving. You don't even have to think about it. Oh, okay, I've got my palms up. Okay, receive. You don't have to do that. Just by putting it in the posture such as that, just by holding the spine erect. And why do we do this? I've mentioned this in previous services, but it's been a long time, so this is a bit of a refresher. This is, as I say, called the spiritual eye in religious terms. In more physiological terms, this is the pineal gland. This is the seat of concentration. And the ancient Hindus and Buddhists knew this, knew that when they focused their eyes, their attention here, they were uplifting their consciousness and that they would be able to concentrate better. Now, when I teach meditation, I know that it can be very challenging for some people because it's just not natural. We don't naturally keep our focus of attention here. But think about this. Oftentimes, when we are asked a question, and the answer is buried somewhere up here, but it's not on the tip of our tongue, what do? Who was my second grade teacher? Well, I can't think of her name right now. Why am I looking up? Am I hoping a great cue card will just appear in the sky? And, Sister Mary Black and Decker, that's it. No. It's just something we do, right? Your parents never said, now, whenever you want to know something that you might have forgotten, you just look up like this. And no. It's something that's just, it's part of the divine expressing itself through us without anybody telling you that it needs to happen. This is why we focus our attention here when we do it. Again, a mudra, it's called Sambhava Mudra. And when I got finished telling you to hold your attention here, palms here, chest out, shoulders back, all of that, I said, now draw the corners of your mouth up into a smile. Because, again, this is aspirational. This is a consciousness that we are attempting to actually hold for real. And a smile is a wonderful way to encourage joy, even when we don't feel it at the time. Now, in the last decade, there have been scientific experiments, right? Psychological experiments. People have been told to smile even when they don't feel like smiling, and then their mood would be gauged. In the first batch of studies that came out actually said, oh, there's something to this. People who smile are, are actually elevating their own mood. And it says here in the Daily Word, I can improve another, no, that's, let's see here. Smiling may indicate my mood, my openness, my availability, and my willingness to interact or share. My smile also elevates me and keeps me positive. So the tests that were run were actually encouraging of that reality, that my smile elevates me and helps me keep positive. But then another batch of studies was done that kind of threw some cold water on the first batch. And these studies said, no, that it really doesn't work. But upon further investigation, here's the difference. The first studies that were done with people who were living average lives and who had a reasonably healthy mental outlook. And it worked for them. It did not work for people who were suffering severe psychological trauma or depression. Because, again, you cannot smile away depression. Using positive imagery, using affirmation and meditation, and developing a spiritual life, enhancing a spiritual life, yes, absolutely, someone with severe depression or some other psychological disorder can benefit, but not without all of the other things that go with that. Treatment, medication, whatever it takes. But I would suspect for most of us, if not all of us in this room right now, we're at a state where, yes, encouraging smiling is an appropriate part of our sadhana. Sadhana is the term we use in the temple for spiritual practice. Smile as a spiritual practice. And it's interesting because when you think of a theologian, when you think of, say, people in colleges who are professors of religious studies and such, they may have the scriptures memorized. But boy, isn't it great when you can see somebody like that smile? If they know everything about the great beyond, the metaphysical mysteries, but when they come into the room, they're rather dour. What's the point? I was, for those of you who don't know, I'm part of a panel, and this is a real privilege. So every week, the Grand Rapids Press publishes a column in their religion section every Thursday, and it's called Ethics and Religion Talk. And it was started by a local rabbi. And what he did is he recruited several of us from various faith traditions who are clergy, and he invites people to write in questions, whether on theology, religious practice, ethics and morality, as long as it's loosely related to any of those. So people write in with questions, and then people from different religions will give their response. What's the Muslim response? What's the Buddhist response? What's the Christian response? Protestant, Catholic, and I'm in charge of the Hindu response. And then we all send in our responses, and they're in the paper. And occasionally, like once a year in the summer, we'll get together, all of us, because those of us on the panel don't interact otherwise, right? We just get our questions, send them in, they're in the paper. So this last summer, it was held at a gentleman's home. He's a minister in the Reformed Protestant tradition. And of course, we had masks, and it was outdoors, so we were all distant. But he comes in, he greets us, And he has one of these masks that has a smile on it, all right? And so we appreciated that. He said, yes, I wear it this way all the time. And then he takes it off and he turns it upside down. And so now you see a frown. He goes, unless we're discussing theology. Because, of course, in that tradition, the goal is to find out what mistakes the other person is making when they parse this biblical verse. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, when we get together to discuss theology, I find that joyous. Because in the unity tradition, as in the Eastern traditions, there is what is called plurality, meaning that there isn't necessarily one absolute right answer, and that we can take a verse, whether it's from the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita, and we can say, well, it means this to me. Well, it means this to me. And it doesn't have to be an argument. It can simply mean this is how it speaks to me. This is how it informs my life. So, I wanted to mention one other thing too, and maybe one of these days I'll expand on this in the future. I love the fact that the Bible quote for today from Job, the 29th chapter, I smiled on them when they had no confidence. In the light of my countenance, they did not extinguish. When we think of Job, we don't think of a jolly man who smiles. And that's probably because we haven't really read the book of Job with a discerning eye. We just get this image, right? When we think of Job, we think of suffering. That's it. But do you know that there is a body of thought, a school of thought, that indicates that in the entire Hebrew Bible, not the New Testament, just the Hebrew Bible, that Job was probably the happiest man in the entire work, in the entire collection of books, that no one was happier than Job. And because we only think of him as he's going through a suffering state, how could he be happy? But he was, and this is the proof. I smiled on them when they had no confidence, and the light of my countenance they did not extinguish. No matter what, he kept a smile. So I would encourage all of us, believe me, I have to remind myself daily. And it is interesting how sometimes it just takes the presence of another person. I'll go hours without a smile, not because I'm feeling bad or anything, but then as soon as a person walks in, that exchange of energy just brightens. So one of the things I attempt to do, so I'm still in the learning stage myself, is to smile for absolutely no reason other than I want to taste a little bit of that joy that a smile can bring. And I invite you all to do the same. Namaste.